Auspicious greetings to all of you online. Welcome back to our History of Indian Buddhism class, Class 2. Last week, we discussed on the culture and religion background of the ancient India before the Buddha's time. And before we start our class for today, let's have a quick review of some of the important information of what we discussed. So before we start the class, again, I would like to remind all of you to have a mindset before the class. The first is that this is not a class for academics, so I won't answer any questions or discuss anything that related to academic. I will only answer the questions based on the cultivation perspective. So this is the class for cultivation, using the history to let us understand why such things happened during that time and after the Buddha's time. And it is not a class to criticize. So this is a history. Good things happen, bad things happen. So why do we need to criticize it? Just to get the information. Be prepared for some information that might surprise you. So again, as I mentioned, is that it's a history. So anything will happen in any time. So this is something that you have to prepare for it. And again, please empty your mind, pour away your cup of water before attending this class. So this is something that always before we start the class, please adjust your mindset and let us receive the information with a simple mind. Okay, so again, look at this map. This is a map of the ancient India during the Buddha's time. You don't need to remember all the places. You just need to remember the west, the central, and the east. And you can look into the place over here. You can see that these are the places where the Buddha traveled around to teach what he enlightened. So this Buddha is normally active in this area. Okay, now, ancient India culture and religion. So we start with the rock shelter of Bhimbaka and also this Mahar culture. Not many records about the religion belief. Might worship the nature god. We discussed last class. Indus Valley civilization. Early Harappan, matured Harappan, and late Harappan phase. And this was a time whereby the Aryan start to invaded in for many, many years. So Harappan worship a mother goddess who symbolized fertility. And after that, after many, many years of war, the Aryans start to conquer the India and either kill or the Indians run away. So it became the time of the Aryans, and the original Indian people become the slave. And it become the Vedic period of the Vedic period with 4 Vedas: the Rig Vedas, Shama Vedas, Yaja Vedas, and Atharva Vedas. So Aryans' invasions, oldest scripture in Hinduism, worship many gods to one god, Brahma. And Brahmanism ritual worship God and sacrifice things to the god, offer to the god, and they also establish the caste system. And because they get more and more extreme by sacrificing, by using the spiritual spell, and also because of the caste system, it was so unequal to the people over there. They start to have different type of philosophies coming out and also practice. So the Upanishads start to develop. It start to analyze the Vedic, the good part of the Vedic, the part that they think is supposed to be in this way. So they practice the yoga. They try to have a lot of new thinking and philosophies comes out based on the Vedic. And the other group at the same time are the Shramanic. So the Shramanic are those ancient Indian religious movements that began as an offshoot of the Vedic religion and focus on ascetic lifestyle and principles. So they are the one that practice the aesthetic way. Either they live in a very undisciplined manner, or they live in a way that they torture their own body. So at that time, there are many, many different types of ascetic practice. And the most popular are these few types, the 6 orthodox schools, Buddhism and Jainism. So of course, there are more than all this, but the major one are the 6 orthodox schools. And from these 6 orthodox schools, at the same time, they have this Jainism, and then Buddhism start to enter in. So Buddha born in India. Currently, the place is in Nepal. But during his time, he was born in the situation, environment of all this, the Vedic, the Upanishad, the Sanskrit teachings, the 6 Indian philosophy school, the 6 orthodox schools. So the culture, the society are based on the caste system. The religions are based on spiritual, based on the Sanskrit language, based on the worshipping, based on the superstitious type of practice, ritual. So these are the were the situation at that time, and a group of movements start to arise, which are those people that against the Brahmanism. So they start to have this 6 Indian philosophy schools and the 6 orthodox schools. So just look at this. So this is the background of the Buddha at that time. And you can see that the Buddha was born in such an environment whereby there are a lot of war happening in the past and even during his time. The Brahmanism split human beings in that place in India into 4 castes. The religious of Brahmanism focus on worship and spiritual practice, and their worship is based on sacrifice. Beings, animals, even human beings to the god. In order to show their superior position, they use the Sanskrit language to symbolize political power. They're most superior people at that time. That's why during that time, especially the last caste, they against this type of worship, sacrifice of worship and spiritual practice. And then they start to compile the Vedic Vedas. And they try to look for the original philosophical information to show that all these spiritual type of things, all this worship were not the original objective of the Vedic. So they established the Upanishad in order to clarify the philosophical teaching in Vedic. But they focus more on the philosophical and also more on the ascetic practice. And at the same time, another group started to arise. And this group are not just one group, groups, which people at that time named them as the Shraman. So Shamanism practice, the ascetic practice, start to have this movement coming up. They start to have the groups called the 6 Indian philosophies school and the 6 orthodox schools. So before Buddha was born, this ascetic practice were already in that place for years. Together with the Brahmanism, and the Upanishad. And so when the Buddha was born during his time, his entire environment are all this thing around him. Around him. So he's well educated about all this. He has a lot of information about all this. So in here, let's look at the Prince Siddhartha birth culture background. The Shakya trip came from the Aryans in the east. So Aryans basically invaded, conquered the whole India. And the Shakya tribes was originated from, they conquer in and they start to conquer each other. And then, so Shakya tribes was from the east side, conquered to the central. And then, but it's close to the west. So in the east was more civilized. And the west was more conservative. They are more strict to the practice of Brahmanism. In the east, they are more emphasized on the emperor power and governing. Of course, they still have the Brahma doing the ritual, but they more emphasize on the political power. So Buddha was neutral. The Eastern and Western civilizations absorb the elites of Eastern and Western civilizations and create Buddhism without bad ritual practice and ritual type spiritual things. In the time of the Buddha, comparison between the East and the West, the Vedic language issues anti-Vedic catastrophe. In the West, they emphasize more on the Vedic language, which was the Sanskrit. But in the East, they basically does not agree with them. The reason is because only the Brahman, they are able, or the priest, Indian priests are able to use the Sanskrit to communicate with the God. So in the West, the priests are in a much higher position. But in the East, they emphasize, of course, they respect the priests, but they think that even the king can learn the Sanskrit. In a way, is that the king also are able to communicate with the God. The king is considered the son of the God. So they try to anti the idea that Sanskrit is the most highest language. Second, social organization against Brahman supremacy. This is because in the West, the Brahman are considered the most superior person in the society. In the East, they are more emphasized in the equality between people, even though they have the four castes, but because of the political power, the lay people, for example, the king, the governor, they do not want to have the priest that's so superior, much superior than them. So in a way, they want to pull down the superior element of the priest. The third, religion anti-sacrificial omnipotence. This means that in the West, they practice the ritual by sacrificing. Even till now in India, the people kill the cow to sacrifice to the god. Things still happen now. Some places even sacrifice the human beings. So this is something that the East does not agree with, because this is a cruel type of action. And in the West, they say that sacrificing is the most powerful things that we cannot against it. It's the only way to communicate with the God. But in the East, they don't agree with this. So again, it's a political type of challenge among the East and the West. And who is the boss? So let's do some comparisons of thoughts between Buddha and Brahmanism. This topic is very important. The reason is because you might receive some information from some people says that Buddhism is originated from India. So it's part of the Hinduism. And Buddhism has some teachings that's so similar to the Upanishad or to the Vedas. So what is the relationship between Buddhism and Brahmanism? So let's start with this topic here. Brahmanism. They focus on the practice of the superior of Vedic. They emphasize that Vedic is the most powerful things. And they emphasize of the creation theory. They believe that the God is the creator of everything, including us, human beings or animals or any beings. We are the creation from the God, and that's why we need to sacrifice things to offer to the God so that the God will take care of us. And if there's a natural disaster, which means that we did not show our sincerity and faith to the God, so that's why he punished us. So these are the theories from the Brahmanism. And the Buddha, he against the idea of the superior of Vedic. He against it. And also the Buddha emphasized that humans should be responsible for themselves. It's not the God that controls us. So this is the most important and also the difference between Buddhism and those religions that based on the God system. The religions that based on the God system, they believe that they belongs to the God. So they need to do confession and they need to obey the God. If they do not obey the God or listens to the God or faithful to the God will punish them. So they need to confess. But the Buddha, his way of teaching is that we have to be responsible for our own action. So we are the master of ourselves. We are the master of ourselves. Then how come we become slaves? This will be discussed in the future class. The Brahmanism believe that sacrifice are considered omnipotence, cannot be challenged, especially blood sacrifice. So sacrifice is the only way. You cannot challenge this only way, because only this sacrifice, using the blood sacrifice, then it will please the God, and the God will protect us. And this is something that the Buddha against this practice of sacrifice strongly. So in Buddhism, why we have this practice of no killing? Because we're against this so-called sacrifice. Practice spiritual spell. In the later part of the Brahmanism, in order to make the people trust them, faithful to them, and listens to them, the priests start to practice this so-called the spiritual spell. And it becomes very superstitious and even have those dark practice. So this is something that Buddha's against spiritual spell. He believed that it is superstitious and unable to see the truth. So the Buddha, he did not emphasize that, oh, we need to see the God. He emphasized on to see the truth. And Brahmanism used God as a tool to establish the four caste system. Brahmanism, again, because of the political power, in order to control the citizens. So they say that this four caste system basically are the rules from the God. So the four castes, different group of people basically were born from the different parts of the God body. And this is something that the Buddha against as well. So in general, Buddha against the sacrifice omnipotent, the spiritual spell, the four caste system. He promoted the idea of equality. Comparisons of thoughts between Buddha and Brahmanism. We continue. Teachings on the positive elements of morality in life. So humans should be firm and responsible for their life. This is something that the Buddha agrees as well. The Dharma regarded as normal. To them is that, oh, the Dharma is the normal things such as the social culture, the good custom, and the right rules are considered as Dharma. So it's more like Dharma to them is the morality. Consider sacrifice ritual as also Dharma. So anything that happened at that time is considered Dharma. But to Buddha, Buddha says that what is called Dharma, the central teachings in Buddhism are morality of life against the belief of divine power and caste system. So this Dharma is also talk about morality of life, but this morality of life are against those things that are unequal, mistreated, and also he against the political power. And the Brahmans, 5 precepts. They also have these 5 precepts. So no harm to beings, no lying, no stealing, endurance, and no craving. So if you look at this, you might question is that, no craving. In that case, why do they need to establish the 4 caste system? Why do they need to emphasize of the sacrifice omnipotent? Why do they emphasize all this? But in Buddhism, the Buddhism 5 precepts are considered no killing, no lying, no stealing, no alcohol, and no sexual misconduct. All these are basically a discipline to oneself by not having the action to harm others and also themselves. So these are the 2 different things. And in Brahmanism, they worship the 6 directions of God. So every day they will start to have the ritual and do the worships to the 6 directions. If you go to India or you are in Southeast Asia, you will realize that in the Hinduism temple, they use the fire to do the worship to the 6 direction. And the Buddha's concept of 6 direction is to pay respects to parents, teachers and students, couples, friends, master and followers, reasonable obligation between teachers and believer. This teacher is the spiritual teacher. The spiritual teacher and the believer. So it's a way of, the 6 direction is the way of respect. It's not a way of worshipping. And now we talk about the comparison between this Upanishad and Buddha's thinking. As I mentioned earlier, Upanishad basically are not very happy with the Vedic, with the late Vedic. So Upanishad start to have this philosophy that in a way is showing that they do not really agree with them, but they are still part of the Brahmanism. So Upanishad, they emphasize on the yoga and meditation is an important method of enlightenment, which is the intuition of the mind and body and attain of inner self. Attain an inner self. The Buddha accepts this concept. Practicing meditation can trigger extraordinary physical and mental experiences. So for those people that practice meditation, you have any experiences, something which is normal. So the Buddha did not against this concept. However, the practicing meditation can easily lead to mysterious superstitions and exaggerated supernatural power. So this is something that when I teach the meditation class, I always mention to the student is that when we do meditation or we practice the Dharma, to some stage, we will have some feeling that there's something different from the past, which is something normal too. So the Buddha guides the practice of meditation on correct view and pure behavior. It is believed that practicing yoga cannot realize the truth and liberation. On the contrary, liberation does not necessarily require deep meditation. I will emphasize this later. In short, the Buddha went deep into the Upanishad and yoga, knew its strengths and understand its danger better. So he could use its essence and prevent from the craving of supernatural power. The way of liberation in Buddhism belongs to the religions of reason and enlightenment. It inherits this style of study. So let me emphasize about this part, which is very important. So there are a lot of people practicing yoga and a lot of people practicing meditation. People look for peace, people look for quietness or inner silence. So this is something that originated from Upanishad. They want to look into their body and mind to attain inner silence. And because of this practice, deep meditation, the person will be able to trigger out their extraordinary physical and mental inner nature. And from here, we will experience the supernatural power inner from ourselves. However, all this will not help us to liberate out from suffering and attain nirvana. It won't. And it might even lead us to the superstitious and also evil action, evil behavior. So the Buddha, he did not against meditation or yoga. He did not say that there's no physical and mental experiences from practicing of meditation. He did not against this. So in Buddhism, we practice meditation, we also practice yoga, and also we accept that, when we do meditation, we will have experienced something. But the difference between Upanishad meditation and meditation is in Buddhism is that Buddhism's meditation objective is to correct views and pure behavior. Because Buddha know that through the practice of yoga, it cannot realize the truth and liberation. Again, Buddha emphasized on the truth. And also he emphasized something is that liberation does not necessarily require deep meditation. Deep meditation or meditation is a tool for us to be able to see ourselves better, for us to be able to see everything around us better and clearly. It should not be something that ties us up and we get superstitious. We get craving to power. We get fear to something that we experience. It's not supposed to be that. So the Buddha, he absorbed the good and the strengths of the Upanishad by understanding more deeper than the Upanishad. He prevent, or he take out the bad concept, unwholesome concept in Upanishad, and he take in the good practice in Upanishad. His practice of meditation is not to practice and become craving of anything. His objective of practice meditation is for liberation. And that's why his teachings is a rational teaching and also a teachings of enlightenment. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, and the comparison between the Buddha and ancient India, Eastern New Religion. Ancient India, India's Eastern New Religion. This is talk about the East side. Pay attention to practical experience, value change, respect free thinking, advocate racial equality, and oppose Vedic authority. The Buddha went to the East to study and came into contact with the spiritual of the time of the East. The true spiritual of Buddhism belongs to the East and take the same stand as the new religion in the East. So basically, the Buddha was more pro to the East, more emphasized on equality, more emphasized on the respect of free thinking, and also against the Vedic authority. Extreme indulgence and asceticism. So in the East religion, they have the 6 type of new religion practice called ascetic, but they are too extreme to indulgence and also asceticism, too extreme. And this is not what the Buddhists want. The Buddha teach the middle path. So the Buddha, he himself practiced the asceticism. He himself experienced it for years, and he know that this is not the path to the enlightenment. So that's why after his enlightenment, he realized that we need to practice the middle path. And the East religions have 3 types of philosophy. The materialism of faith is the body. They say that the body creates everything. So we have to believe that the body is the fate. So they do not have this cause and condition concept. The dualism of different life and different body. They have this concept of dualism. The dualism of different life. The dualism of different bodies. So again, it's too extreme. The color means form, and mind are me. So this body and the mind belongs to me. Different and indifference always the same. So they have this concept of there's a me, I. And Buddha, his teaching is not to fall on both sides. The origin of impermanence and no self, because everything changes all the time. There's no definite things that unchanged. There's no definite. Faith can change. The body can change. It will change and it come back and change. So the Buddha integrate the civilizations of East and West India, adjust them and completed a new religion that compromised both East and West. Moral, rational, equality, and free religious qualities. All functions in India are partial, are more or less just the particular part. But Buddha's teaching, can there be a complete unity? He tried to compile these teachings from different schools and try to find a middle path in teachings of life. So comparison between Buddha and the Eastern religions or other religions is that Buddha teach about the cause and condition, which we call the causality. Everything happens, everything arises, everything happens, everything ceases. And then it will arise again and it will cease again. But all this arise and cease are around all this: morality, rational, equality, and carefree. We should be liberate out. Even though we liberate out, we must have the concept of morality. We cannot be too extreme. We should be rational. When there's a rules in this country, we follow the rules. We cannot say that everything is impermanence, so we don't care about the rules. No. And also equality. We have to promote the equality among people, among races, among gender. So this basically are the key teachings from the Buddha. So the Buddha enlightenment. The Buddha, his realizations, dependent origination, three Dharma sales, impermanence, selflessness, and nirvana, wisdom, prajna, equality, morality, and carefree. He realized that everything depends on each other in order to arise. So there's a cause and conditions depending on each other's to rises. However, this arises will cease. That's why it's impermanence. Because of the cessation of this thing, it arises again will not be the same as the previous one. So there's a selflessness here. And if we are able to understand all this truth, we will be able to achieve nirvana in our life now or after our life. But even after we achieve nirvana in this life, we still have to practice wisdom, equality, morality, and carefree. And based on the capacity of human beings. When I say capacity, it means that our level of understanding. So the Buddha, his basic teachings are Four Noble Truths, 12 links or 12 karmas, supposed to be 12 links, and 3 Dharma sale. And he guides us to practice the Eightfold Path. So a lot of people ask me is that, Venerable, how should we practice the Dharma? Okay, very simple. Just practice the Eightfold Path and you'll be able to live a better life, regardless whether you are Buddhist or not. And if you practice the Eightfold Path, you will be able to understand the truth and ultimately achieve nirvana. So the basic knowledge or the teachings, the Dharma in Buddhism are the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 3 Dharma sale, dependent origination, and law of causality, cause and condition. Which means the same. Dependent origination and law of causality are more or less the same. What caused things to happen, and after all things happens needs the condition. So it's condition, cause, cause, condition, condition, cause. It's more like a circle. So these are the teachings in Buddhism that cannot miss out. If those people say that I study emptiness and do not know about the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 3 Dharma self, and dependence origination and law of causality, this person does not know about Buddhism or the Dharma. Any of the people that consider themselves as students of the Buddha must know all this. It's a must. So now, I have a brief introduction to all of you about the relationship between the Buddha and the religion before the Buddha time and during the Buddha's time. And what those teachings of philosophy that the Buddha absorbed in, adjust it, and what are those things that the Buddha rejected or against it. And he compiled all this and start to have his teachings that is suitable for the human beings in order to guide them to live a better life, understand the truth. So this is the objective of the Buddha. Understand the truth, liberate out from suffering, and ultimately achieve enlightenment and enter into nirvana. So these are all the things that I would like to share with you today. And basically, I will type some questions in our Google Classroom. And I hope that if you have any questions or any comments, please type in the Google Classroom and I will reply to you. I hope that we have some interaction to the Google Classroom. And the next time when we have the Q&A session, we can face-to-face and discuss on it. So today we will stop the class here and I will see you next class. Amitofo.